Hello again. First of all, my first video did way better than I expected. Second of all, I would like to offer my thanks to everyone who watched the video, and to those who commented expressing interest in my project. Y'all are super cool. Now, before we get to the rest of the video, I have an announcement to make. We have a Doodlesaur Studios Discord server where you can hang out and see more frequent updates of what me and my friends are working on. I've also given them access to my channel so they can post stuff that they're working on. You can see who made what from the overlay on the thumbnail. For example, this is my overlay. Now, on to why you clicked. In this video, we will mainly be talking about areas, obviously, but we'll also cover things like the power system, where the game will actually take place. It's still on Pluto, but where on Pluto specifically. Some details regarding the gameplay loop, as well as some other lore-related things. Now that that's out of the way, let's get this show on the road. Cue the intro. Welcome. I thought I'd bring us somewhere more scenic and less pixely today. So, I want to start with going more in-depth into the game's setting. I'm planning on having the game's map placed in a large crater. Since this environment is enclosed, I can have the crater walls act as a diegetic world border. Here's some concept art I've made for the map. This will not be the final layout. I want the final version to either have things closer together, or come up with things to do like puzzles or something. Probably a bit of both. The four notable buildings on the map are the launch building where the player will spawn, the laboratory, the manufacturing building, and the residential building. The latter three being where the rocket part assemblers will be situated. Another location I'm planning to have in my game is a large space station in orbit of Jupiter. This is where the game's tutorial sequence will take place. The current name I have for it is Eden Station. Very original, I know. In the tutorial, the player will exit their habitation pod, walk down this hallway, and ride an elevator down to this area. Down here, the player will be taught the basic mechanics of the game, with its in-lore explanation being a final training exercise. Now for the final thing I want to go over that pertains to the setting. You may have noticed some colored stripes on the 3D models. These are representative of the companies that create them. I'll go over them now. First, we have blue, which corresponds to Jade Aerospace. They are the aerospace division of Jade. Telling you about Jade is a bit beyond the scope of this video, so I'll tell you in a future devlog. Jade Aerospace manufactures vehicles, spacesuits, that sort of stuff. Next is orange, which corresponds to Mafic Industries. They manufacture all of the industrial equipment and storage containers found throughout the game. Then there's yellow, which is Interlock Maintenance. They make security systems like the doors and the wrench, which, as you can see here, has gotten quite the glow up. There's teal, which corresponds to Glade Bioengineering. They make devices like the save stations, medkits, cryopods, and finally, there's purple, which is Jewel and Wyatt Powerworks. They are responsible for the batteries and any other electrical equipment in the game. Speaking of electricity, the next chapter is all about how it will work in my game. The power system is one of the core mechanics in the game. Power is used by buildings, devices, and the player. The player needs power to use their wrench, use their flashlight, and maybe to refill oxygen. You know, because an internal air compressor would require power. If you think that would be a good or bad idea, let me know in the comments. Devices use power to work. I know, what a crazy revelation. When a device is used, it draws power from the area it's in. Areas are subsections of buildings that have their own power banks, which devices draw from. However, their power is not unlimited. If an area runs out of power, but its building still has power, then it will enter emergency mode. In this mode, devices cannot be used, and all the lights are dim red. And since the lights are dimmed, this means the monster is free to roam the area. If the building itself runs out of power, then you've got bigger problems. All the lights completely shut off, and all the doors will open, enabling the monster to freely move around. Additionally, if an area is in emergency mode, it will have low oxygen, meaning that in this area, if the player has their helmet off, they will move slower. Or, if they put their helmet on, they will consume oxygen at a reduced rate. Note, if the building itself loses power, then there is just no oxygen in the building, and the player is forced to put their helmet on. And finally, buildings. They have one large power bank that is used to recharge its areas, but it recharges them at a set rate. If you overuse the devices in an area, it will lose power and enter emergency mode, and it will only return to its normal state upon being fully recharged. I also want to implement a warning system to make it more fair to the player. If the lights flicker twice, that means the current area is low on power. And if the lights flicker 3 times, that means the whole building is about to lose power, and that the player should start to, ideally, get the fuck out. But Doodlesaur, I hear you ask. What if the building loses power and I still need to use the rocket part assembler? Am I just soft-locked? Well, first of all, you probably didn't actually ask that. And second, I'm glad you probably asked. No, you are not soft-locked, but you will need to perform some extra steps. I'm hoping to have some kind of power substation on the map, which will allow players to recharge buildings, specifically to avoid softlocks. So you will simply need to head there to fix the power. And now you can use the rocket part assembler. Speaking of using the assembler, the next chapter is... Now, if you have a look at the game's main premise, you would probably think, huh, so you just need to use assembling machines to make parts to fix a rocket and escape? That sounds easy! But I ask you, is horror ever easy? Well, sometimes when it's done poorly. No. And because I want my game to be the Pluto horror game, not the Pluto walking sim game, whenever you want to make a rocket part, you get to play a little minigame. The game starts when you activate the machine. As the machine assembles the part, you need to give it materials as it needs them. These materials can be collected around the building. If the player does not have all the materials they need, then they will have to venture out into the rest of the building in order to find them, which, by the way, has had all of its areas set to emergency mode due to the minigame. Now, this doesn't sound so bad until you bring the monster into the equation. During the minigame, it will periodically try to enter the assembler room and attack you, and you have to shut doors to keep the monster at bay. As the player gets further through the game, the assembler rooms will have more doors that the player needs to keep track of. Fortunately, to keep track of the monster as it moves around, the player can make use of a camera system to see where the monster is. You can see where this is going. This system will allow the player to shut the doors in time. Also, you can probably guess what inspired this minigame. Although, if you know what this minigame was actually inspired by, you are an absolute legend. Alright, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Guess all we have left is the... I'd like to start off by saying thank you for watching the whole video. It is very, basted of you. Now, before we go, I just wanted to share my plans for the channel going forward. My idea for this channel is to serve as a creative outlet, not just for me, but for my friends as well. So you can expect some videos from my friends showcasing what they're doing. For example, my friend, whose alias for the channel is Doodle Guy, has released a video which serves as a self-introduction/devlog for Infinity Dungeon, which is a game that he's making in collaboration with another one of my friends, Common Gaming 101. There's actually a playable demo on Scratch, which Common Gaming has made as a proof of concept. You can find a link to it in the description. Well, that's all for now. Have an awesome day.